Hello Ortensia, let's get straight to your portfolio review. Now your first shot is, I think is a great image of this spider in the web. And usually I see spiders flipped where I don't, we see the other side of the spider, like the back. So this is a rare, at least for me, because I don't particularly like spiders, so I don't look at them all that much. But this seen from below is very interesting. And when I was trying to think of something to come up with to help add to your picture or aid it, there wasn't much. It's a very good shot. The only thing I would suggest is that these are distracting, this leaf here and this bright spot here. So I would just get rid of them. Now you could either crop like so to avoid this one and this one, or we would get rid of a little bit more, rid of this one here and this one here. And then of course we have to balance it out because the spider most likely would be centered. Okay, so now these spots are perfectly fine. They're naturally a part of the picture. It was just the extra elements that were a little bit visually distracting. Like this is kind of distracting and so on. So that's why I suggest a tighter crop. Now, of course, this is debatable. A lot of people would say, no, I like especially like the wide panoramic view, and this doesn't distract me. Well, great. That's perfectly fine. My thought is that this would be more pushing people to the main subject, but at the same time appreciating more of a squarish or semi-horizontal picture. And this little thing here, we could even probably crop a bit tighter, like so. Okay. Now, if this is a raw picture, originally, like this is, you sent me a JPEG, which is what I asked for. I would tend to probably reduce highlights on the spider's underbelly and the spider's arms. And you can easily do that in a number of ways. For example, highlights, bring the highlights down. We're not going to do it on this picture because this picture is a JPEG. Or for those who use Lightroom CC or Photoshop, you can just do a selective highlight reduction and you just paint anywhere where there's super highlights, and you can adjust. See how I can adjust just the spider? And this is a very effective way to reduce highlights so you see texture in any area that's a little bit too bright. But I'm just going to delete that. And by the way, a mask appears if you place your cursor over the little blue button. This is in Lightroom CC. Okay, so I'll just delete that. Nice work. Let's get to your next shot. So whenever we have a situation where we have two things like a tree on either side of an object, or lamppost on two lampposts on either side of an object, we would refer to these things as framing devices. Now, a framing device usually is something that has two objects that are the same or similar. They're flanking an object, and usually vertically. So let me see what would happen if we tighten up this shot and made sure there was no distractions anywhere. So what I'm going to try to go for is a scenario of equidistance, where this distance, just for reference sake, let's say on my screen this is 1 inch. Then the corresponding area should be the exact same distance. So this would be 1 inch right here. Similarly, let's say this is 1.5 inches. Then we would want this to be as close as 1.5 inches as possible. Now, you'll never get it exact, especially in the natural world, but this is pretty close. Now, I do realize, of course, that we just dropped a bunch of your picture, and I'm not saying that this has to be the case. However, this will give a sort of a balanced approach to the idea of having framing elements in your picture. It also, of course, pushes us straight into the butterfly much more. Now, I feel that the overall exposure of your picture is quite good. We may be a little bit too hot, as they say, on the wing. So you just go to highlights and just watch how the wing reduces. Okay, so, and again, if you're shooting in RAW, you're going to have much better results than I can get here. Or, of course, which would be even better for those who have the selective ability, is to reduce highlights and just simply paint the highlight reduction on the wing. So let me show you what that would be like. Now this is, of course, a bit too much, but we would be able to adjust the wing any way we see fit. So I would say probably you're going to be looking at about a minus 10, probably. You could even increase the yellow aspects of it. So something like that. Let's look at the before. Now take a look at the brightness of the wing. Now let's look at the after. Do you see how we now see texture in this wing? And if we go over this blue dot and hover over it, we can see with this mask the areas that we actually painted on the highlight reduction. Okay, good. Let's get to your next picture. Okay, so this must be down south, maybe in Mexico. And wow, look at the color on this, well, whatever it is. I have no idea if it's iguana or lizard or whatever. And, you know, this is, of course, is a really good documentary shot. I think your composition looks great. And I honestly can't think of anything I'd change. The only thing that I would suggest, and this is not possible for everybody, but if you use Photoshop or Lightroom CC, if you go to the linear gradient tool, you can actually create a gradient that will darken this area down here. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm just going to reset these. So my linear gradient is at the bottom because I find that these tiles, these two tiles here, are too bright. So I'm going to go to exposure. I'm going to really radically show you how it works. And let's go all the way down to the bottom. Now when I move up my linear gradient, do you see how the bottom part is getting darker? And you can adjust this linear gradient any way that you want. So my only desire is to darken a little bit the bottom two tiles. So I'm going to bring exposure back up. And I'm going to create an exposure that's very similar or just a touch darker than these this area up here. And why am I doing this? Well, it's similar to the theory of vignetting, where if you place a vignette around your entire picture, you're pushing the viewer's attention to the main subject. So this is good, but I feel it's muddy. That's why I'm going to add a little bit of yellow and a little bit of saturation. Okay, and let's look at the before. This is the original. And this is the after. Let me get rid of that there. I'll try it again. Before. Now do you see how this is way too white? Because it's not pushing the viewer to the iguana. However, this, because we've darkened almost like I said, almost like a vignette would, all of our attention gets pushed immediately to the iguana, and that's exactly what you want. Okay, so this is I believe the last of your 5 pictures. Let me double check. Oh no, this is number 4. Now, whenever we have a situation of symmetry where the left side, especially in architecture, where the left side is equivalent to the right side, we usually try to center our composition. So in this situation, it might have been, if possible, like you can't always do this, but it would have been better if you were completely in the middle of the staircase. So we want this, well, let me show you let's try to do a correction here, and I'll be able to show you first. Let's go to geometry, and let's try full, just see what happens. Okay, not much. Let's try auto. Okay. Let's try our guided tool. Okay. So what I'm realizing is that this is not going to be an easy fix with regards to keeping everything perfectly symmetrical. I was hoping that I could do some magic here with geometry. Let's just try vertical, see what happens. Yeah, nothing is really coming up. So what we would do is at least straighten the picture as best we could. And then we're going to crop in so that the left side and the right side are equidistant. Let me show you what I mean by this. We want the top part of the where the arch converges to be in the dead center. And like I said, ideally if you could photograph this in the middle of these stairs, then it would have been a dead straight on shot, which would have been perfect. Already it's a really cool shot, and I love the scene. Now that we have tightened this picture up and we've made the center point in the middle, you may find that there's a little bit too much empty dead space up here, so you could probably lower it. And you could also, if you wanted to, just get rid of the stairs. And that might be more of a powerful shot. There's less sort of extraneous elements that we like to say. Also, we have some hot spots here. So to do a global adjustment, we go to light, we go to highlights, and we would just reduce the highlights. Now keep in mind that this is a JPEG image, and the highlight reduction doesn't work very well with JPEGs, but it works really well with RAW. So if you shoot RAW, you'll have the original of this picture, and you can do the exact same thing that I just did. And the highlight reduction will bring detail back in the stonework here and the windows back here and so on. Okay, so let's go to your next picture, and this is the last shot. Now, I feel that we need a little bit of dehaze work in this shot, so let's go to Effects, and let's go to Dehaze. Now, dehaze is a scenario where that sort of the ultraviolet or shadow haze is reduced. And let's look at the before and after. So it's a bit of a hazy shot, but now we have a bit of a cleaner shot. Now, if you don't have dehaze, then there are other ways to get around that. And you could do a little bit of clarity, or you could go to light. You could increase the shadows, but radically decrease the blacks, and that will work fairly well. Okay, but let's just warm up the picture a tiny bit. Not too much, just a touch. Okay, that looks good. And I feel that we got it's a little bit hot out here, so what I'm going to do is a quick solution, just reduce the highlights just a bit. I'm going to increase the shadows and decrease the blacks. Now, why would I do that? Well, by increasing shadows, we see more detail of her. By decreasing the blacks, we get more punch and more drama. Okay, so I feel that this is a really well done portrait, and you know, there's so much emotion on her face, and you know, there's a story to be told here, and I think you did a great job capturing her. So excellent work. And this is just being super nitpicky, but why not? This little thing here bothered me. So what we would do is just go to any type of healing, like a clone or healing, and just go like so. Just paint it, and just reduce the effect of that little white spot if you can. And it doesn't have to be perfect. But let's back out. By the way, her facial expression is just unbelievable. Very good work. Okay, Ortensia, that is it for your review. Thanks for sending in your photos. I really enjoyed going through them.